Hey, yeah, new video. Yeah, this guy, Psychal Mukola, I am going to use him for views, and I'm going to beat him twice in this video, as you can see from the title. Anyway, let's get into it. So I played d4, d5, bishop f4, and my opponent already surprises me on move 2 by playing this move, knight d2. And this, it's kind of hard to surprise someone on move 2, but I don't think I've ever seen this move. I mean, I understand the idea is probably to go to b6 in some lines and control the c4 square, but it is such a weird move. It's just like a wacky move that's out of the way. So I of course go with my normal plan of playing e3. Opponent plays e6, all reasonable. I play c4, and my opponent decides to keep it kind of a little bit symmetrical with this move c5. And as you can see by the eval bar, I'm actually winning already. So yeah, that's the video. We're done. No. So I'm actually winning already, and I do miss it. After CD ED, I have just a better position after something like knight c3 or knight e2, because after this I can take with the queen, and now I don't get an isolated d pawn, an IQP if you will, and I have a lot of pressure on his IQP. So that's why CD is winning. But I don't play that because I'm bad. I just go knight c3 immediately, and the board has shifted over to a strange color. Okay, I cannot change that. Why? That's really weird. I guess we are going to keep it with this weird light or color. Either way, knight c3. My opponent plays cd, I play ed, and my opponent plays dc, giving me the IQP, which is very common in types of structures like this. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to get to the actual game review button instead, because although it has feedback and everything, and I don't like that, this is a lot more easier to see with the non-light or colors, and this is a little bit easier on the eyes. Anyway, so knight c3, cd, ed, dc, and I play bishop c, and I realized that my IQP, my isolated d pawn on d4, is actually going to be a bit of an issue here. And I'm already thinking, maybe this wasn't the best thing to go for. I think I should have played the opening a little bit different. I of course should have played CD myself instead of knight c3, but either way, I didn't really know this opening, never seen this before, so I'll keep that in my back pocket, and I will never have problems with this again, which is kind of what you're supposed to do with openings. And yeah, either way, my opponent plays knight gf6. Reasonable. I play knight f3, bringing all my pieces out, and although my position looks nice, I got all my pieces out directly where they want to be, I got central control, it's really not that good. It's not as good as you'd think, because this pawn is such a weakness in so many lines. The position would be perfect. The position would be absolutely perfect if I had a pawn on e4 or e3. That would mean that my position would be much better. But for now, my position is actually, in my opinion, slightly worse than my opponent, although I have all this nice development going. So, knight b6. Like I said, the whole idea of knight d2 was to play knight b6. Bishop b3. My opponent plays this move, knight d5. And it attacks the bishop, and it targets the knight. And I think here for a while, I eventually just played the normal option. I eventually just played bishop g3, but I think here for a little bit. And I was thinking about a lot of things here. I was thinking about taking, primarily. I was thinking about knight takes. And after knight takes, of course, he's not going to give himself an isolated d-pawn. I might go bishop e5. I might go back. I don't know. But then I decided that I'd rather leave the knight there, because he's not actually threatening to capture my knight. Because if he does, I'll take back with the b-pawn. I no longer have an isolated pawn, and it has a little buddy next to it. And I should actually be better in that position. So I go bishop g3. Just to illustrate, if knight takes, yeah, position already at plus 1.2. Yeah, because I just get this clump and I have no more weaknesses, and I'm actually much better due to my development. Either way, bishop g3. My opponent plays move bishop b4, reasonable. Targeting my knight, threatening knight takes, and then he would have a fork on my rook and my king. So of course I can't allow that. And I go for the move queen d3, which I think is reasonable, developing my queen to a more active square. I might castle long. Actually, I'm probably not going to castle long, probably going to castle short. But I think this move was quite reasonable. Defending the knight, and this is probably just the best square for the queen. I mean, you can defend the knight with the queen in other ways, like queen c1, but this is passive. Queen c2 is also passive. So queen d3 is just the most normal move. Actually, the best move is to defend it with the rook, which is reasonable. I probably should have seen that, but you know what? I mean, it's chess. Sometimes you miss things. Queen d3, castles, and I go bishop c2. Just a little tempo winning move. I'm inducing the move g6 because he has to play that. I'm threatening checkmate over here with this battery. So I'm making sure that he has to play a weakening move, and I thought g6 was pretty weakening because it weakens the dark squares around his king, and I might be able to exploit that in the future. Not right now, of course, but I'm planning for other parts of the game. And then I play this move a3, which is pretty reasonable. Of course, if he takes my knight, then I will have these pawns, and just to illustrate that, this position is better. This position is clearly better. I would say it's even +1. The engine doesn't think so, but this position is better. Oh, bishop c3 is actually the best move. Well, that's incredible. I would not realize that. Bishop c3 does not seem like the best move to me. Yeah, but he plays a move that I thought was right, which is bishop e7, much more human move, because I don't think any humans are gonna be taking that knight. I castle, which is reasonable. The only reason why this move is actually bad is because it allows me to play some h4 and actually start an attack. I wasn't really focused on the attack because I didn't really see any way to go forward, and I thought that h4 was a little too weakening at this stage in the game, so I just castled. Bishop d7, reasonable. And knight e5, putting my knight in the center, putting my knight in the better square, and actually threatening to take the bishop pair, which is kind of my whole point. It's actually not that good, which you'll see in a moment, but it was my plan to take the bishop pair all this time and actually just grab the two bishops and say that I have a weakness, but I have the bishop pair, so I might have some compensation and it might be equal, because right now I do think that I am slightly worse, although the engine, of course, always disagrees with me. So a6, reasonable. Maybe he's preparing bishop b5 in some circumstances, and I just snap off the bishop, which is a mistake. I guess I should have seen that my knight is better, because my knight actually controls more squares than the bishop and is actually doing a lot better job. I might go to c4 in some future position, and yeah, I really shouldn't have done that. Either way, I take, queen takes, and I make a big mistake here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I make a big mistake. The moves here are actually hard to play. Like a human move would be to play rook ac1. Maybe that kind of brings the advantage down a little bit. Maybe human move would be to play rook e1, but that's actually a little bit like harder to explain than rook ac1. The best moves here are bishop e3, which, I mean, I guess the bishop is better on this diagonal and to pressure the knight. It's also a little hard to explain. I don't really understand. And then a very strange move, the move rook fc1. The idea is to maybe play bishop b3 in the future, and then after knight takes, you can take back with the pawn here and keep your pawns together. I mean, I understand. So knight takes, and I play this move b4. This is a bad move, if you can't tell by the. This is just not good. Yeah, this is not good. Not a good move. I probably should not have done this, but I thought it was reasonable. Just take some space on the queen side, and I really didn't have much else to do. The reason why this is bad is it actually kind of weakens my knight. And the best move here, I saw this during the game, is knight takes, and then putting another knight here. Oh, that's actually wrong. Oh, rook ac8 first, and then after, what would I play here? I guess find a move for white. Queen d3, and then you just put more pressure, and you're actually almost lost here. Yeah, bishop f6. You cannot keep the pawn. Okay, reasonable. Yeah, I didn't see that. My opponent didn't either. Well, I saw the first move. I thought it was decent. My opponent played rook ac8, reasonable, putting some pressure on my knight, and I go for this move knight e4, and I think this is smart. And my calculations here, I wasn't really calculating anything. I was kind of mostly playing on intuition here because it's not really much to calculate. I was thinking, okay, so what do you do with the person with the IQP? What do they like doing? They like keeping pieces on the board, because the more pieces on the board, the easier it is to defend the pawn. And if after you trade a bunch of pieces, it becomes a little more complicated. So let me just show you, like, arbitrarily. takes, here, queen takes, and then here, here. This position is pretty decently worse for white. Of course, that was a very rough example, but the position is pretty worse for white, and I'm probably going to lose this pawn in the future. So I obviously don't want to go for that. I'm going to go for the more simple option to keep the pieces on the board and actually just keep my knight in a better position, which is it going over to the c5 square, which I think is very, very reasonable. And of course, if the bishop ever takes here, I'll get 3 pawns, and I will no longer have an IQP, and I won't have any more weaknesses, and I will hopefully win the game. So my opponent plays f5, and actually this is a losing mistake because it allows, I think the idea of this move was to play f4, which is, I mean, it makes sense. The only move that wins here is knight c5 because I'm targeting the queen. The idea is f4 and my bishop will be trapped, but it doesn't actually work because after knight c5, I'm attacking the queen. After the queen moves, I'll be able to move my bishop. And also if, for example, the bishop takes, which is a forcing line, I have this move with tempo, first of all, and second of all, this bishop was actually one of the proponents to block my bishop out, so it's gone now, and I would be much better. So knight c5, yeah. My opponent plays this move, queen c6, reasonable, and I decide to keep everything active, keep everything makes a lot of sense, and I play this move rook fe1, which is a very reasonable move. It's actually the best move, top engine move. The reason why it doesn't like say so outright is because it's on a lower depth. The game review computer is on a lower depth. It says it in accuracy. It's the best move. You see how the valuation doesn't change, plus 1.81, and then it's like, yeah, plus 1.9. Yeah, best move. Either way. Now he takes, reasonable. Again, if he plays this move, I get rook e6. He drops back, and I can actually just take I can take on g6 with a major attack here, and I am just completely winning. It's actually just checkmate. And yeah, my opponent's not going to go for that because he's not an imbecile. Yeah. So here, my opponent trades trades the knight for the bishop, which is kind of my whole plan. Now I take back with the pawn, and I'm much better. I keep everything together. Up, I decide to plant my bishop on d6, which I think is reasonable. I'm trying to disconnect the queen and the pawn, so I thought that was reasonable. My opponent plays rook fe8. I play bishop e3, getting my bishop active, and I'm also threatening to take another pawn here. Well, I'm not really threatening to take another pawn. I'm threatening to make a massive weakness, like for example here, takes. This pawn is a big weakness that actually just can't be defended. Like, yeah, rook e1 is the best way to attack this, and after this move, I'm able to get just massive counterplay. He has to give so many moves to defend this pawn, but it's really just over. I make a left for my king with f3 while also controlling the knight, and then I'm going to double up on this file, and I'm going to win the pawn, and I'm going to win the game. So my opponent didn't like that. Actually, after this, I have a very nice move, but we'll get into that later. My opponent plays knight f6, knight df6, and I play this move queen f1. I think this is very smart. In retrospect, I was thinking about this move f3 that I should have played just to control the knight. I was thinking about this during the game, and I really should have played this move. I didn't because I didn't really think that I thought it was kind of a waste of time. I thought it was opening up my king a little bit. It really wasn't. I really shouldn't have had those thoughts, but either way, I was kind of seeing a ghost. I play this move queen f1, and basically the idea is I'm actually going for this move a4, which is very nice. And the reason why it doesn't work right then is because if I played a4 right now, then knight b4 would come with tempo, and I didn't really like this. Of course, I'd be winning, but after this, I thought maybe he could sack the rook, and then I don't know. But here I actually have queen b3, and I'm actually winning, but I didn't see that line. I didn't see that line. It's not the end of the world. Oh my gosh, I got a little bit of a headache, huh? Yeah, so that's why I played queen f1, knight e4, reasonable. And I think here for a while, and I eventually played this move, rook a1, which is the best move, very reasonable. I don't want my opponent to get my bishop, so I'm trying to prevent knight d2, kind of my whole point. And I was calculating what happened if knight would go to c3, and I didn't really see anything wrong after rook a1. So my opponent takes the bishop, and now is my way to win the game, and I miss it. I play cd, which is the wrong move. The way to win the game here, and it's actually very pretty. I have to sack my rook, which is very nice. And after rook takes, I have this. I have a pin against the king, and I'm attacking the queen. Queen goes back. I can actually just take cd, or I can take here, here, and here, and I'm just up a pawn in a completely winning endgame because these pawns are very far advanced, and there's nothing my opponent can do. So I missed that. I go cd, and my advantage is almost all gone. Queen d, of course, but I still have some play. So I play this move, queen d3, obviously trying to recapture my lost pawn because I'm now down a pawn. And my opponent plays this move, rook c3, which is just a terrible, terrible move because, of course, my opponent can't do this. It's just a free rook. The knight is pinned to the queen. Sorry. The knight is pinned to the queen. He can't do that. What is he doing? What is he doing? Oh my gosh. It's pitiful. It's pitiful at this point. Yeah, so this game is over already, but my opponent tries to keep it going for a little bit longer. He desperados the queen on h2, which is a reasonable move. King takes, knight takes queen. And I take this pawn first. Rook takes, and I just get into a position where I'm up in exchange, and these pawns on the queen side are falling, and it's just over. I played this move. I think it's reasonable. Basically, it just tries to cut off the king while also attacking this pawn. I guess I could have played rook b6. This is also winning, but pretty much everything is winning here. Even if I do nothing for a move, even if I play like king g1, I'm still completely winning because the knight, even though it gets a square closer, it's not far close enough to defend its pawns ever, and I would just be winning the game very easily. So yeah, this is kind of where the game ends. We'll go through a couple more moves as my opponent plays some. Takes on f2, take here, g6, g5, trying to start an attack against where there is no attack here. Knight up, takes. I got two passed pawns, and I'm simply able to advance my pawn very slowly and get into a position where after this move he's trying to sack his knight for the pawn, but I play this move and my opponent simply resigns because he cannot stop my pawn, and I will be checkmating him very shortly with my queen, with my newly founded queen. So that was this game, and yeah, after this he gave me a rematch. So let's get into game number 2. All right, and we're back with game number 2. So yeah, as you can see, my rating went up by 7. We're up to 2,097, which is very nice. 3 points away from 2,100. I'll probably make a video on getting 2,100 tomorrow. Very nice, unless I just lose all my points, but hopefully I don't. My opponent goes d4. Now I'm playing with the black pieces, so I go with my normal line against d4, which is this move, knight f6. c4, I play e6, trying to get into a Nimzo Indian. My opponent doesn't allow me to, in the weirdest way. He plays this move, bishop g5, which is just so weird. And now it kind of resembles a Trempowski, but he played c4, and it's just, disgusting. I don't think this is a real line. I think my opponent was freestyling, and I just simply go c5. Very reasonable move. My opponent plays e3. The reason I go c5 is for two cases. I want to open up my bishop, and I want to actually open up my queen, disregarding the pin, because after it takes, I'll get this file, and I'm actually doing slightly better. My opponent plays e3. I take, and I was thinking that in my calculation, I actually thought that he blundered, and this move would just pick up the bishop, but he actually can drop back. So of course I'm not gonna make that mistake again, and I go for this move, queen b6, instead of that move, queen a5, because I didn't think that this position was very nice. I didn't really enjoy this position. He can also defend his bishop with this, but this is just not good. He would actually be pretty much lost here. But yeah, we're not gonna get into that. I played queen b6. Very reasonable. I'm moving my queen out. I'm attacking this pawn. I was calculating if this move bishop takes would happen, and I was actually not going to play the best move. I was going to play GF, and I thought I was better here. I was going to argue that I was better here, but the best move is actually to go here, which is kind of strange. It's a little bit strange. I wouldn't have played like this because I thought that maybe he'd be able to go here in some lines. After queen a1, it's actually kind of hard to get my queen out of danger. And I mean, it's not actually. I should have calculated a bit more concretely, like this move, and I'm fine. I'm able to win this pawn, but still, I should have probably calculated that better. Either way, I didn't go for that, and he didn't take it. So all that's a moot point. My opponent goes for this move b3, and already loses the game. To this move 94, a very reasonable move. I'm targeting the bishop. When the bishop moves back here, probably, I will be able to take this pawn. If the bishop moves back here, I'm able to check him with this, and probably he's going to have to either lose his d pawn or lose the ability to castle. So, bishop e3, check. My opponent goes here, and I'm just so stupid. Oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Why did I'm very annoyed by this move that I played. I'm actually like mad at myself. I play such a dumb, idiotic, stupid move here. And the move is that I give him another tempo. I'm with the pawn. I mean, it's not like I don't win the pawn, but obviously you play bishop d2, queen d4. Simple stuff. He goes here. I mean, you can trade queens, or you can play the best move, which is queen c3. And I'm actually kind of mad at myself because this is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous that I don't do this. I got into my own head here. I thought that I wasn't winning the pawn, so I went for this move instead, bishop c3, which is just so dumb because all it allows him to do is do this, and then I take, and now I don't have queen c3 anymore, and it's just a better position for white because now he gets his pieces more active, and I'm just such an idiot. I play knight c6. My opponent has a lot of compensation for the pawn because of actually, as you can see, the eval bar is -0.2, and that's because my opponent has a lot of compensation, and it's actually kind of hard to play for black. My opponent plays this move a3, and I think here for a while, I thought a3 was a mistake. It is, but it's a mistake for the wrong move. I play this move a5, which is just a bad move. I should have really respected that this bishop could give me problems, and I should have played b6, which does two things. It simultaneously develops my bishop, it blocks this move, permanently, it blocks bishop b6 permanently, and I'm much better. But this move a5, what it does is it creates a hole on b3, and it creates him having prospects to go over to the c5 square in the future and stop me from castling, which is actually kind of my whole point, because this is kind of more like a queenless middle game than an end game right now. And yeah, so this move comes bishop d3. I think about playing f5, but then I of course don't want to because that would be doubling my e-pawns for no reason. So I just go knight f6. My opponent plants his bishop on b6, which is just a mistake. If he was going to plant his bishop anywhere, I thought he was going to plant his bishop here because this stops me from castling, and it actually gives me a lot of issues. I'd probably play something like rook a6, and maybe I wouldn't win this position. Maybe I lose. You never know. Yeah, anyway, so that doesn't happen. Bishop b6, I castle, and this move knight f3, reasonable, developing. And I play this move e5, which I think is pretty good because it threatens a fork, and I didn't really see a good response, like a good way to stop the fork. I thought if knight d2, I'd play like rook e8. I'd still threaten a bunch of stuff. And I thought this was very reasonable. I thought this was a very nice attack. It's not one move itis because I thought this had like a threat, like a genuine, like decent threat that one movers don't really have. So my opponent goes for this move bishop c2, which is good. Yeah, knight d2. I thought this was kind of wrong. It is for a weird reason though. Oh, this is a weird reason. I didn't even see this. I sacked the d pawn, which is really funny. Oh, and this is a sacrifice because here. Oh my god, what? Why is this like completely... Oh, no, I'm dumb. Okay. No, I'm stupid. I thought the knight wasn't there. my god, I'm so stupid. Whatever. Anyway, so d5 would be the best move. It's actually not that insane. I play rook e8 here. Reasonable. And now I play this move rook a6. I talked about this earlier. I really need to develop my bishop, this is kind of the problem piece in this scenario. So I want to play something like b6 in here, but then my b pawn is always a weakness. My opponent sticks in the position, going to bishop c7, and I go for this move e4, which I think is well timed. The idea is I'm just going to push him back. I'm actually trying to play e3 at some point and just keep all my pieces in. And he plays this move that shocks me, actually. I thought he was going to play knight g5. I genuinely thought he was going to play knight g5. I didn't really realize his response was knight d4. It makes sense in retrospect. I should have seen this, but I thought knight g5, and I would play like h3, h6, knight h3, and then I'd be better here. But I didn't really even recognize that his idea was knight d4. So I take, and I decide that my idea is now going to be to like slide my rook over to e6 and try to get something going there, and maybe I'll sack a pawn or something to try and get my pieces out. Actually, the best move is to sack a pawn. So play d5 again and get into this position. And the reason is just because I need to develop my bishop. I just really need to develop my bishop. So I don't sack a pawn. I go for e3. And fe3 comes out a shock to me. I thought fe3 was bad. I thought he was going to play f3. And then I wouldn't push because he would blockade the pawn and he'd win it. And I thought that I was actually not doing too well. But actually I'm doing fine here. It's really interesting. I can sack the pawn again, which is kind of the idea. I can sack the pawn again, or I can do a bunch of other stuff. It's pretty much everything is kind of. Oh wait, no, everything is not equal. Oh my gosh, no. Oh, the only move is d5. Everything else is losing. Rook a6 loses. b6 loses. Everything else loses. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. I didn't realize that. E2 obviously loses, but I mean, I guess, well, f3 might have been a chance, but my opponent plays fe, which is the best move. Rook takes. My opponent brings the king, and I find this is the correct opportunity to go with my plan of playing this move, rook a6. And now he can't actually take this because I have this fork between the king and the bishop. So he'll have to try something else. He goes bishop d3, reasonable, and I go b6, and now I finally solve the problem of my light squared bishop, and I'm getting it into the game now, which is very nice. And that was the whole point of bringing my rook over to the side. And my opponent takes and tries to get into a sacrificial battle, kind of. Not really sacrificial, more like tactical. But this loses. This loses to a very interesting line. It doesn't lose like in Creed. It doesn't lose like I win a piece. It loses after this move rook d3, which is very reasonable. Of course, I'm going to sack my rook. Two bishops are hanging. Rook takes and rook b6. And although the pawn count is equal, I am up bishop and knight for rook. And this is going to be kind of instructive to see how I'm able to convert this. So I will show you guys the full rest of the game. It's a little over 10 moves, 15 moves or so. So my opponent plays c5, very reasonable move. I give this check first, and I'm going to take back on c5 because he gives me this forking idea. It actually doesn't work. This move and c5, he has this move rook c1, and I'm actually under a lot of pressure here. Rook dc3, I can play d6, but then this move b4 comes, takes, and I actually have to sack a knight and get into this position where I have to make a draw after this, and I would be making a draw here. Very interesting, very interesting. After king g1, I wouldn't be taking the pawn, but after this move, I'm able to, because after something like this, I have bishop b7 check, and I can get rid of the skewer on my pieces. Very nice, very lucky that he moved it up there. So that's not what happened. I took the pawn, and he goes rook e3. Now it's never too late to blunder checkmate. Never too late to blunder rook e8 mate. So I decide to not allow this. I go bishop b7 check first. King back. I give this check, and king back. I don't think this is a good move. I think king g1 was the best move here. And then, I mean, it's still possible to play on, but with this move, I'm able to go rook e6, and after it takes, I take with the d pawn, and now I don't have any more weaknesses. I'm out of weaknesses. This is kind of like the same thing that happened in the last game. I'm out of weaknesses, and I'm going to win this game very nicely. So, b4, takes, and I thought I blundered here. I played this move. He is down a full minute on the clock, so I'm not too worried. But of course, I realized that I can't take because of the skewer. I actually can take. It's a possibility. I'm still winning here. I can play g6. Oh, am I not winning? What? Oh, what? No, bishop g2. Bishop g2 first, and then g6. And this position is winning because I'm just up 3 pawns. Yeah, okay, that I would have found that. I'm sure I would have found that. No. Yeah. But I don't take. I go knight e5. Very reasonable. My opponent plays this move here. And I just totally missed the opportunity to play knight f3 check and pick up the h2 pawn. And I just don't do that. I play g6, which is also not it's a very reasonable move. It creates a luff for my king, make sure that there's no back rank mate ideas. I'm still up 30 seconds on the clock. There's no way for my opponent to keep going. King up, and now I don't miss again. I play knight g4, I pick up the pawn, rook there, I give this check, I bring my knight back, rook d6, king d6, I give this another fork, and here I'm actually threatening, if he goes here, I'll just take this pawn. This is a winning endgame. Even if there wasn't, even if he didn't have a minute on the clock, this is completely winning, because he just can't. I mean, a 4-on-1 is not. You can't win that. You're not gonna win. You're not gonna lose. Well, you're not gonna win. You're not gonna draw. It's just completely winning for black. That's what I would have done, but he doesn't do that. Instead, he just kind of resigns here. He just kind of plays rook c6. The position was already lost. So I just take the bishop. I take the rook, and my opponent resigns. And I win another very nice game at 2,097, 3 points away from 2,100, which will come out tomorrow, hopefully, unless I mess it up somehow. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive. Yeah, good evening and good night.